Eric, you're doing great work in Tanzania, and it's growing, and you're praying it grows more. So tell us a little bit about that.
I mean, I would agree 100%. Like the joy comes in watching people journey.
Yeah.
And the joy comes in watching people grow and watching people change. And the blessing of being a missionary is having a front row seat to that journey in people's lives. And the vision of Wesley College is really to be an impactful part of our students' journey. And so we try to focus on how we can get them there and then impact them and transform them and then send them back out. There's a graduate of ours. Last year, we graduated one of our first classes of community development workers and business students. And there's a woman in that graduating class who is our stereotypical student, did not think that she was college material when she was a teenager. Many of our students already, my oldest is 14 and going into high school, and already people are talking about, well, how are you going to get to college? And that's not a conversation her family ever had with her, I guarantee. She was married off at 14 because her family needed to pay some medical bills, and that was the best, easiest, quickest way for them to get money. And so she was married off at 14. She had 2 kids by 16. And by 17, her husband had left her. And she was wondering what in the world that she was going to do. And what, she wasn't worried about what her life was going to look like. She wasn't worried about how do I finish my high school education or how do I get into college. She was worried about how do I put food on my table and feed my kids and make sure they don't get sick because I can't afford to take them to the hospital. And it's a long story and an amazing. I'll try to cut it short, do my best to fit into some kind of time. But in the middle of that, she was literally sitting on the side of a road, just crying and afraid to go home to where her 2 kids were because she didn't know what she was going to feed them. And a woman walked by and asked her what was going on, and she explained the situation. She said, "Come with me," and she took her to the parsonage of a local church, and they gave her some of the food that they had in their home, and she went back and was able to feed her kids. And so that Sunday, she went to church and went to service, and afterwards went up and asked them, "Why would you help me? You don't know me. There was no reason for you to stop. There was no reason for you to help me." And they said, "This is what God's love for all of us looks like." And that's the day that she was saved. And she became a Christian, and she had this desire always to be able to give back to others. She's got an absolutely amazing, huge heart for everyone that she meets. But it was years. She was being saved didn't remove all of her challenges. It's not like she magically got out of the situation that she was in. But slowly, she did eventually get a job, met some people, and several years later, ended up being the supervisor at an orphanage. And now not only had her kids, but was able to provide care for over 50 children who didn't have a home. But she never went back and got her education. And while she was doing an amazing job, and while she was doing what she felt like God had called her to do, when she received that grace and gift herself as a 17-year-old single mother, she knew that there was more that she could do, and ended up at Wesley College, where she was able to finish her high school education through our GED program, take classes, gain the skills that she needed, and the vision for how to mobilize and organize what she had in her heart. God had laid a long time ago a burden on her heart to help people who were widowed because they had been married too young into a family, or second wives who didn't have a voice and weren't well taken care of, women that had been cast aside for various reasons. And she had had a heart for that since she was married off at 14. But at Wesley College, she learned how to put feet on that vision. She learned how to make sure that she could carry it forward and do the organization she needed and do the mobilization she needed. And in the last 6 months, since she's graduated, she has started back in her hometown a women's group that intentionally invites second wives, widows, young women who don't have secure marriages, and oftentimes as a form of discipline or sometimes left outside at night in the cold, and are able to bring them together and mobilize them, and first and foremost let them know that they are loved. First and foremost, let them know that they have a God who cares for them and who sees them and who sees what they're going through and is willing to walk with them just like that God walked with her so long ago. And she tells them very much up front, that's why God put me in your life, because I had somebody in my life when I was 17 who shared God's love with me, and I have to pass that on, and I have to give that to you. And then on top of that, they also do a lot to meet the physical needs and the emotional needs of that group of women. And so she has been on this journey, and I don't want to downplay her heart or her vision at all. It's been amazing being a friend of hers and being part of her community. But it's also amazing how 3 years of education is able to give somebody the skills and the ability and the vision they need to finally do what God has placed on their heart. And that's what we ultimately get the most excited about.
Yeah, that's amazing.